Hey everyone, I hope you're having a good day so far. Um, Hello, I am on my cam for the first time ever in a stream of my own making. Um, so today I wanted to talk a bit about the whole Windrush scandal debate that is currently going on with the government and the Home Office. It just seems to be one thing after another, one one screw up at a time with this wretched, wretched government that we have. I mean, I just don't think that they can get any lower. Um, they're just um, they're just making a mistake a day. It seems there just seems to be one uproar after another, and yeah, I wanted to talk about it, seeing as it's an issue that I think is important, and seeing as it's personal to quite a lot of people who have lived and worked here, people from the Commonwealth, people who have families from the Commonwealth, Caribbean, West Indies, and India, for example, everyone who has come here to live and work from the late 40s to like the early 70s. So yeah, I think it's an important issue. So I'm going to talk about it. But first and foremost, I'm only going to make this sort of like a fairly short video, 10 minutes or so, just because I wanted to just say my piece and then go away. And also, shout out to Captain Swiss because I think he's having a bit of a hard time at the moment, and I wish him well. And I hope he comes back to the old YouTube soon. So yeah. Um, so what I wanted to touch on and discuss, as I said, was this whole Windrush generation of people who it's come out have been treated fairly badly by the state, the UK, the UK government. So a lot of people, it's been reported, have been deported from the country. The number isn't known because the Home Office, in their incompetence, don't know the number, don't know the exact figure of how many people have been deported. There have been instances where people haven't been able to reapply or get jobs or get health care, apply for pensions. Um, the list goes on. They're just not being treated like the rightful citizens that they are, which they should, because if it were any one of us, like white, shall we say, we'd expect to be treated the exact same. Get access to the NHS, get the jobs that we want, and these people just aren't being treated the way they should be treated, and I think it's appalling. I think it's just absolutely horrifying that this government and the Home Office, under the watch of, may I say, Theresa May, who was the Home Secretary during this whole scandal was happening, this is on her watch, and it's also on Amber Rudd's watch as well. He was the current Home Secretary, so it's her job, as David Lammy pointed out quite spectacularly in the Commons yesterday. She should know the numbers of people that have been deported, and it's a day of national shame, as he also rightly pointed out that how have we allowed this to happen in 2018? This morally corrupt government that has just been systematically treating people who have every right to be here, have lived here, their parents have arrived here, they were invited here by this country in the 40s to rebuild the country after the Second World War. Um, from Commonwealth countries, as I said, such as the Caribbean, the West Indies, um, India, there my geography is not great, sorry. Various other different countries around the world, and they've literally built up this country. Like a lot of the infrastructure, they got their own jobs. I know, you know, haven't really asked for anything, demanded anything extra. A lot of people, like, they don't apply for benefits only unless they absolutely have to, which they probably do now, seeing as they're pensioners and probably need that sort of access to social care, etc., and welfare. And their children, who came with them, didn't actually, have any passports, didn't own any documentation, because they actually arrived on the passports of their parents, a lot of whom are now dead, passed away. So don't actually have the ID to apply for their own passports now, which I think is, and and then because they don't have the relevant ID to apply for, the most basic things, like you've got, home office officials knocking on their door, security people, police, immigration officers, you know, arresting them, like sending them to, um, you know, just not prison, just, incarcerating them in cells, and um, just it's appalling. I just think I can't. It's just every passing day with this government. I feel so ashamed. I feel so ashamed of the way that this government is treating people. I don't know if the government in particular is just inherently racist, or they don't understand the needs or necessities, or they're just lack of empathy, just lack of um understanding, or even wanting to understand what how people, the needs of people needing to live their lives, and just having the basic, ID and work and roof over their heads and being able to pay bills. You need to have um all of this stuff, and like, it's like they're entitled to be here. So yeah, that's the first bit out of the way. um so I've got a few articles from the BBC and the Guardian, just explaining a bit about who the Windrush generation are and how this whole situation's come about. Um, because it's just, I don't know. I mean, they've got themselves into it. This can only be blamed on the Home Office and Theresa May, because she has deliberately made it more difficult for people to um actually apply to, like, go to work and etc. It's people just, like, are just unable to get jobs because they just don't have the paperwork, the documentation, in order to, have, like any of us would do. You'd need, like, references, your national insurance, your passport, proof of identity, driving license, like bills, um, all the rest of it. So yeah, I just think it's really, really appalling. So I'll screen share with you now. Um, Hi, people in the chat, by the way. Good to see you. Oh, there's quite a few people here now. Luke and Cam, hello to you, and Angels as well. Hello, hello, hello. So yeah, I'm gonna share first of all. What shall I share first? Yeah, I've got a Guardian article, which talks about how the Home Office destroyed people's landing slip cards, which, a lot of people used in order to, um, you know, make it easier for them to do things in their everyday lives. So I'll share that now. Just bear with me. Yeah. What's that? All right. So this is a Guardian article saying that the Home Office has destroyed Windrush landing cards, and this is by someone who used to work for the Home Office, so they're pretty much a whistleblower on this issue. Let me know, guys, if you can actually hear me properly in the side chat. Sometimes I don't speak very loud. Exclusive evidence of UK arrivals discarded despite caseworker protests, said former employee. The Home Office destroyed thousands of landing card slips recording Windrush immigrants' arrival dates in the UK, despite staff warnings that the move would make it harder to check the records of older Caribbean-born residents experiencing residency difficulties. A former Home Office employee said the records stored in the basement of a government tower block were a vital resource for caseworkers when they were asked to find information about someone's arrival date in the UK from the West Indies, usually when the individual was struggling to resolve immigration status problems. Although the Home Secretary Amber Rudd has promised to make it easier for Windrush generation residents to regularise their status, the destruction of the database is likely to make the process harder, even with the support of the new task force announced this week. So it's been decided, I think, this week that the Home Office is going to set up like a task force in order to rectify this whole situation and make it easier for people to prove their residency within the UK and their immigration status, even though when they arrived in this country like 50 or 60 years or so ago, in 1971 there was a bill passed or an act passed in Parliament that gave these people an indefinite right to remain here. So I don't know why they've created this problem. Like it didn't exist before, but because Theresa May and her ilk within the Home Office sort of fiddled around with immigration rules to make it a quote unquote hostile environment, to make it harder for people to, as I said, apply for jobs, access the NHS, move house if they want to, prove their identity, etc. It's an absolute shambles. I find it so horrendous that this is happening now, and like I'm glad that it's coming out in the open, but for this to, I mean, people have been struggling with this for like most of their lives. Like I don't know why. It's just this government is just sordid with their just outright disdain for people of, I don't know, like everyday working class people, whether they're black, are they a bunch of racists? They have like, why would you create this problem? You're just making it harder for yourselves. I mean, did you predict that this was going to happen? I don't know. Anyway, the former employee who was asked for his name not to be printed said it was decided in 2010 to destroy the disembarkation cards, which dated back to the 1950s and 60s, when the Home Office Wit Gift Centre in Croydon was closed and their staff were moved to another site. Employees in his department told their managers it was a bad idea because these papers were often the last remaining record of a person's arrival date. In the event of uncertainty or lost documents, in the event of, the files were destroyed in October that year when Theresa May was Home Secretary. Interesting that, isn't it? I wonder whose fault this is, Theresa May. This is all on you. A person's arrival date is crucial to a citizenship application because the 1971 Immigration Act, as I mentioned just now, gave people who had already moved to Britain indefinite leave to remain. When staff were asked to find evidence of an arrival from the Caribbean or other former colonies and had difficulty tracing any other records, senior officers would request the key to the basement of the neighbouring building and consult the landing cards. They recorded the name, date of arrival, in some cases the name of the ship. Sometimes the passport office would call us up, blah, blah, blah. Excuse me. After the destruction of the archive, when an individual... Excuse me. When an individual requested confirmation of an arrival date, staff had to reply stating there was no record of it. From around 2013 onwards, he said the number of requests from people from the Caribbean began to increase. Every week or two, someone would say, "I've got another one here," he said. People were writing to say, "I've been here for 45 years. I've never had a passport. I've never needed a passport. Now I'm being told I'm not British because there's no record of me." Because it was no longer possible to search in the archive of landing cards, people would be sent a standard letter that would state, "We have searched our records. We can find no trace of you in our files." Immigration lawyers have repeatedly criticised the Home Office's insistence that it is up to individuals to provide copious evidence proving their right to be in the UK. If UK officials had kept a record of everyone granted indefinite leave to remain, they say the problem would never have arisen. So yeah, like as I said, like if Theresa May and the Home Office hadn't destroyed this evidence of these landing cards, which were in many cases the only proof or documentation that someone arrived in this country, we wouldn't be having this problem, would we? I mean, I don't know why. Can someone give me a reason as to why this decision was made? Because it seems, I don't know about anyone else, it seems fairly stupid. Like, why would you destroy if that is the only evidence for someone to be here legally? Why would you destroy that evidence and make it more difficult for someone to prove that they're a citizen of this country? Someone could answer that in the side chat. That would be great. So yeah, there's a bit here about David Lammy, the excellent speech that he gave in Parliament yesterday. It's probably worth showing actually because it is absolutely amazing.
Can I say to the Home Secretary that the relationship between this country and the West Indies and Caribbean is inextricable? The first British ships arrived in the Caribbean in 1623, and despite slavery, despite colonization, 25,000 Caribbeans served in the First World War and Second World War alongside British troops. When my parents and their generation arrived in this country under the Nationality Act of 1948, they arrived here as British citizens. It is inhumane and cruel for so many of that Windrush generation to have suffered so long in this condition, and for the Secretary of State only to have made a statement today on this issue. Can she explain how many have been deported? She suggested earlier that she would ask the High Commissioners. It is her department that has deported them. She should know the number. Can she tell the House how many have been detained as prisoners in their own country? Can she tell the House how many have been denied help under the National Health Service? How many have denied pensions? How many have lost their job? This is a day of national shame, and it has come about because of a hostile environment policy that was begun under her Prime Minister. Let us call it as it is. If you lay down with dogs, you get fleas, and that is what has happened with this far-right rhetoric in this country. Can she apologise properly? Can she explain how quickly this team will act to ensure that the thousands of British men and women denied their rights in this country under her watch in the Home Office are satisfied?
Brilliant. Oh.
Can I say to the...
Absolutely brilliant, stellar speech from probably one of the best Labour MPs in Parliament today, David Lammy, everyone. Absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I'll just quickly take a look at the the side chat just to see what y'all are saying. So Angel says, I feel many Conservative voters are also unhappy because they are simply awful. I'm sorry, Luke says, I'm sorry, but the Home Office needs to be abolished. It is unfit for purpose. Cam says there are a few Tories that come from the Windrush generation. Yeah. Well, David Lammy even said that his parents came from Guyana, I think. May is potentially the worst prime minister in living history. I don't know. It'd probably be between her and David Cameron, I think. Luke says, I wouldn't be surprised if she got rid of the Act of Parliament, the 1971 Immigration Act. I'm shocked this is even a thing. I'm shocked as well, Cam, that this is happening. I find it so unbelievable. And like even like this week, Theresa May has had to, with the heads of the Commonwealth coming to the country this week for a general meeting. I don't know what they're talking about, but she had to basically sit there and apologize to everyone for any anxiety that is caused to to them and to citizens of their countries and to citizens of this country who have a lot of people. I probably wouldn't it probably wouldn't be a stretch to say that a lot of these people have been detained in places like Yarlswood for basically not having the right immigration paperwork, so therefore have been deemed illegal immigrants to this country, which is like I just don't have the words. I mean, they arrived, these children of immigrants who were basically naturalized under the 1971 Immigration Act, given indefinite leave to remain. So basically, you're allowed to stay here, have worked and lived here all of their lives. A lot of their children who arrived here like really young ages, at the ages of like 3, 4, no other country other than the UK. So Britain is the only country that they know, and the idea that they are being asked to leave or being deported to their country of origin, which is completely alien to them, it's just absolutely and utterly. It's just horrifying. It's just like I can't believe. Um, it's moral corruption on a huge scale. Like how do you let it get to this point? Why would you make decisions that allow this to happen? Like what? I just don't have the words. I don't have the words. So yeah, these children, because they arrived here on their parents or their like older siblings' passports with usually very little documentation, because they were like told that when they arrived here, they'd basically they'd be allowed to apply for jobs and do as they pleased and like live and work here without that without the documentation, because they're citizens of this country, invited here to build up the country after the Second World War. And now they're being told that, oh sorry, oh you can't prove that you're a resident of this country, so therefore we're going to have to detain you because we think you're an illegal immigrant and you're possibly going to be deported. And the Home Office doesn't even know the number of people that have been deported. These poor people who just don't they can't get the paperwork, the relevant paperwork, and they're having to in order to prove that they are in fact citizens, have like 4 pieces of documentation for every year they've been here in this country. I mean, what? I can't even find my doctor's notes from 3 years ago, let alone people who've been here for 50 years. I mean, do you think like if someone's been here for 50 years, do you think they can dig out some utility bill from 1964? Doubt it. That is just, it's just bordering on cruel. Like if you asked any other person, oh yeah, I need your electricity bill from 1973. Can you please find your driving license from when you passed your test 30 years ago? I need evidence of when you were living in this house in the 1980s, or when you switched jobs in this year. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. It's callous, it's cruel, and I don't know what it says about this government, but it's certainly nothing good. It's a complete shit show, farce, clusterfuck. I mean, if this is happening now with Windrush citizens, and the Home Office are having to deal with this whole issue now with Commonwealth citizens, I don't know how the hell they're going to deal with the rights of EU citizens when it comes to actually leaving the EU. Because if they can't deal with this, how the hell are they going to deal with the 3 million odd EU nationals that are living here? I just and this, they're still 40% odd in the polls. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. What are you guys saying in the chat? This is going to drive tensions between the Caribbean countries and the UK. Almost all of the Windrush generation have full British citizenship. Well, exactly. This is why it's so outrageous. This is bollocks. It sure is. That they would have evidence of their long stay in Britain. Well, yeah, they would have evidence, but I mean, the idea that you have to pull out documentation of like all these different bills and proof that you've been here for every single year that you have since you arrived. I mean, that's a chore to ask anyone to do, let alone like imagine if you got your like elderly gran to do that. I mean, how unfair and immoral. Yes, thank you, Cam. Given that I know a lot of Windrush migrants since they are my relatives, bureaucratic madness, it's not unreasonable to ask for evidence of a long stay in Britain. But above all this, it's not, they're already citizens. They have been given right to remain in this country, and now because of Theresa May's incompetence or like lax decision making, she's deliberately made it harder for people to prove that they actually belong here, which they absolutely do. I mean, they've been living here and working here for decades, and you know, the idea that you have to suddenly prove that, oh, actually, yeah, like I'm legally allowed to be here, like after all that time. I mean, it's not fair. It's not fair to people to like if you wanted them to have documentation, you would have not destroyed the only pieces of evidence they had of their arrival here, and 2, made it a lot easier for them to actually apply for things like passports and driving licenses, etc., by actually giving them access to IDs and things like that, and identity cards. But you haven't. So this is just on the Home Office. It's completely on the Home Office. It's no one else's fault. I mean, like a lot of people here are actually illegal. Like they're here illegally. So I think the government should put a lot more effort into actually rooting those people out, as opposed to putting all their eggs into trying to root out the Commonwealth people who have, really put a lot into this country and this society. So yeah, I just don't think that it's fair. Luke says, I think most of the EU citizens will be deported by Theresa May. I think that's a bit excessive. I don't think. I mean, there'll be public outcry if that happens. Um, no, I hope that doesn't happen. That is quite extreme. But I've got another BBC article here as well that basically explains why the Windrush generation are experiencing the problems that they are. Are they illegally? Yeah, it just basically explains what the Guardian article did. It says the Home Office did not keep a record of those granted leave to remain or issue any paperwork confirming it, meaning it's difficult for Windrush arrivals to prove that they are here in the UK legally. So I guess that answers your question, Bubble. This. In 2010, landing cards belonging to Windrush migrants were destroyed by the Home Office. Because they came from British colonies that had not achieved independence, they believed that they were British citizens. International Development Secretary Penny Mordaunt said there was absolutely no question of the Windrush's generation's right to remain. She told BBC Radio 4 Today programme, people should not be concerned about this. They have the right to stay and we should be reassuring them of that. Bloody good job you're doing of it. Mrs May's spokesman said the Prime Minister was clear that no one with the right to be here will be made to leave. Those who lack documents are now being told that they need evidence to continue working, get treatment from the NHS, or even to remain in the UK. Changes to immigration law in 2012, which require people to have documentation to work, rent a property, or access benefits, including healthcare, have left people fearful about their status. The BBC has learned of a number of cases where people have been affected. Sonia Williams, I think she was on Newsnight last night or the night before, who came to the UK from Barbados in 1975, aged 13, said she had her driving licence withdrawn and lost her job when she was told she did not have indefinite leave to remain. I came here as a minor to join my mum, dad, sister and brother. I wasn't just coming on holiday. Paulette Wilson, who came to Britain from Jamaica aged 10 in the late 60s, said she received a letter saying she was in the country illegally. I just didn't understand it, and I kept it away from my daughter for about 2 weeks, walking around in a daze thinking, why am I illegal? In her apology, Mrs May insisted the government was not clamping down on Commonwealth citizens, particularly those from the Caribbean. The government is creating a task force to help applicants demonstrate they are entitled to work in the UK. It aims to resolve cases within 2 weeks of evidence being provided. Announcing the move, Home Secretary Amber Rudd apologised for the appalling way the Windrush generation has been treated. She told MPs the Home Office had become too concerned with policy and strategy and loses sight of the individual. Delegates at this week's Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in London are to discuss the situation. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I just find it so outrageous that this government is treating people in this way. And I also, I don't know if anyone else saw this, but David Lammy tweeted out a link to a page on the government website, gov.uk, which detailed a document that was published by the government in 2013. And I think it's called Coming Home to Jamaica, which described in a lot of detail advice and do's and don'ts and general itinerary of what to do if you're a deportee or the country was sending you back to your country of origin for whatever reason. how to, you know, the best things to do. And one of them, I mean, it's about a 36-page PDF document, and it's on their website if you want to go check it out quickly. And one of the pieces of advice was to speak like a Jamaican, so as to fit in with the community, and you know, people don't suspect you of coming from a foreign place. It just goes on and on and on, doesn't it? I don't I just I've got no more words to describe how broken and immoral and just so lacking in empathy and compassion, or have any sort of understanding in how other people in this country live their lives, or you know, people from working class backgrounds, especially people from like the BAME communities, like black and ethnic minorities, LGBT groups of people. I just think they're just so out of touch, this government, with just people, people with jobs, people working in hospitals, people who, you know, in residential homes, elderly people, people in social care. Um, just I just don't think they understand like what it's really like, and that's what angers me so much about this government. It's just that they come across like they speak like robots. They seem to be reading from a script, and they just generally act like they don't really care about, you know, whether or not someone's been detained and locked up for, you know, not having the relevant documents to live here, even though they've got a legal right to be here. I find it so disgusting, it's and yet, you know, day after day, Jeremy Corbyn is constantly smeared over whether it's anti-Semitism or whether it's Russian spy, whether it's, you know, allotments jam. It's never ending. It's constant, and I think a lot of it has been built up from the right-wing press, um, papers like The Sun, The Mail, The Express, that have just over the last few years especially just been building up these headlines of really hateful, bitter, xenophobic, racist, really, really horrible um, headlines and reports of just how much that they probably just hate this country. Just the way that they keep going on about how much they hate different kinds of people, like, oh, I hate these immigrants, black people, murderers, rapists, this, criminals, that, knife crime, gangs, and it's does my head in. Does my head in. So yeah, that's mainly what I wanted to do a video about today. I'll probably be wrapping up in a couple of minutes. Um, this is going to get much worse. This government does not know how hard it is to speak like a Jamaican. Thanks for that, Luke. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I just think it's just. I keep saying the word appalling, but I I just want this government to be gone. I hate them. I just cannot stand them. Just the way that they behave and the way they just conduct themselves, and they just lack compassion and empathy for just normal human beings on a base level. Like, why can't they just understand what people are going through? Um, anyway, yeah, I'll probably wrap this up now. But yeah, if you've got any other comments that you'd like to add, please feel free to drop them in the bottom when this video is over. Um, Also, don't forget to subscribe and share this video around if you want to. And yeah, I will see you guys very soon. Enjoy the good weather. Bye.